Danny Curylo. Cascade crops. Well, here's a guy that grows. Here's a producer. Here's a cultivator. Here is one of the guys that's getting you the product out of the Northwest, out of the state of Washington. Danny shares how he's doing, what he's doing. All right, so Danny, I have met you a few times. We've spoken on the phone multiple times. I see your last name in email all the time. But for some reason, I can't work out how the U and the R and the Y and the L go together. How does that all happen?
That was a kind of a random assortment of letters that my grandfather chose when he was coming over. Yeah. It took him a lot of time. He was Polish, and so, that's how we ended up with it.
And so I pronounce it...
Actually, it's Curylo is the proper way of doing it. It sounds Italian, but the Americanized version is Curylo.
And how do you pronounce it?
Curylo.
Okay. Yeah. So we're here with Danny Curylo.
There you go. Thank you.
Your kids are here. That's incidental.
Yeah, it's completely incidental. I had a soccer game before this. Yeah. So
did you play or one of the kids?
No, it's raining outside, so I spent the whole entire game in the car. I did cheer out the window. Lima can verify that. Okay. Any gores scold or any goals scored?
Not today.
Not today.
First game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, usually he's pretty good for a couple, but today it was a very tough match.
Okay.
A lot of animosity between the 11-year-olds.
I see. Well, there's built-in Timbers and Sounders fans, I would imagine.
Oh, yes. Actually, Gametti is a Whitecaps fan from Vancouver.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
He's not so much big of a Sounders guy.
Okay. All right. So good. All right. So there is the pathway, right? Because you were in Vancouver. You're now in Washington. Where did you start? Where did you grow up?
I started in a small little town about 5 miles from the U.S. border called Chilliwack, BC. And I spent my life on a dairy farm, and I grew sweet corn and sold that on the side of the road as a kid, and probably prepared me for my current career now. After that, I went to several universities, Simon Fraser, UBC, UCSB down in Santa Barbara. And I ended up in technology in San Francisco for a decade. I worked for it was a small .com when I started, but it was called Salesforce. And when I left, there was over 9,000 employees. And so that was a fun ride, let me tell you. I made a few bucks there. And the problem with that is these very high-performing companies, they compensate you very well, but the level of expectation is nothing less than staggering. And so after 10 years, I decided I wanted to do something else. And the farthest thing from a keyboard I could find was flipping houses. And I did that for a couple of years and lost a bunch of money. And then this great opportunity to grow marijuana came along. And that's where I ended up today.
All right. So that is, there's your trajectory. I want to talk to you about a couple of things here. Salesforce.com, yes. That is a very specific CEO. Did you spend time with him?
Mr. Marc Benioff, yes. Actually, he is one of my sort of corporate leader heroes. I was only one step away from him, and I spent lots of time pushing outrageous projects on him. We did a lot of crazy things at Salesforce, and he would always go for these kind of crazy ideas. And it actually taught me how dynamic business can be and how to structure a business, which I think, again, made me perfectly suited to go into growing marijuana.
So what were the basic business principles that you learned from Mr. Benioff or Marc?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. My first 2 years there, I ran a department and I didn't have a budget, which means that it's not like I didn't have any money, it's that I didn't have any limit on the spending of the money. So that one kind of burned me, because when I came into marijuana, I thought there would be buckets and bucket money. And let me tell you, one of the biggest problems I thought I would have would be the duffel bags of money, which I didn't know what to get rid of. But it was what I think really helped me there was just learning the computer processes and how to do simple workflow. Amazing things like how to use a spreadsheet, which a lot of people in our industry are very challenged to do.
Yeah. So you do know how to use Excel.
Excel, yeah. Oh, I'm a pivot table master, so yeah.
But big concepts. I mean, it sounds like he kind of lets you do your own thing. He lets you own your projects. You didn't have a budget, but what about those strategies or theorems?
Oh, absolutely. Number one thing about Salesforce is they treated us exceptionally well, and it was all about building the team, and that's what I've really focused on here. In terms of learning, identifying your marketplace, and one of the big things is people get sort of this narrow vision of what they've got in front of them, and the one thing Mr. Benioff taught me was the big picture, right? Don't just go for the little guys, go for everybody. You got to do, one of the things that's very common in sort of Silicon Valley is the idea of the moonshot. And my moonshot is 40 grow houses or 40 greenhouses that, with over 200,000 square feet of canopy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, dream big. That's what he taught me.
All right. And so we're on our way there. I just want to kind of go ahead and couple growing sweet corn,
yes.
And then obviously get to cannabis.
Yes.
But you're a little kid growing sweet corn. Who would have known that cultivation, right? That grow experience would come back?
Oh my gosh. You know what? So, and actually I have to say the business model of me at, 14 years old, sitting on the side of the road, in my, sort of beaten up pickup truck, selling, corn by the dozen would directly translate to me, working with the Washington State Liquor Control Board and selling eighths of marijuana on a large scale. And actually, I have to tell you, I don't really think the two are that much different. Mm-hmm. Just the money's a little different,
right?
And a little bit more scrutiny.
Okay, money's different, a little bit more scrutiny, but the principles of growing remain consistent.
Oh yes. I do think I actually probably made more money selling the sweet corn now that I think about it. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I think that I think that's one of the sort of my background really helped me enter this market. I didn't understand how to grow marijuana commercially when I started, but I understood commercial agriculture, and so I was able to sort of take those basic tenets and learn how to grow marijuana commercially. And I actually don't think that too many people in 2012, 2013 knew how to grow commercially. And you can see that in the way that our industry is rapidly changing away from the closed indoor model to a closed greenhouse model, mm-hmm. more like that. Yeah.
Greenhouse / sun-grown.
Sun-grown. Mm-hmm. There's actually, it's really interesting. I want to clarify that there's actually 3 distinct grades of marijuana: indoor, outdoor, and greenhouse. Outdoor is if you get the really good stuff from the Emerald Triangle, nothing will beat it. But however, the number of people that can really grow that high-end good outdoor stuff is like 3. And then you have a whole bunch of people that can go pretty decent indoor, right? And I think that the bridge between the two is this greenhouse. The cost of setting up a greenhouse is probably, $50 to $75 a square foot. An indoor operation is probably pushing $500 a square foot. And then once you get to your production, a greenhouse is about a fifth your operating costs. Mm. So yeah, you're pretty much going to see all the significant growers are going to move to sort of growing in greenhouses.
Excellent. And just kind of clarify that as a grower, right? What is so special about the Emerald Triangle from a grower's perspective?
Oh, well, it's that magic place where they've got perfect humidity, perfect, air temperatures. They've got, the sun, crosses the sky at the perfect sort of meridian, what do you call it?
Sure.
Whatever that is. It's just that, and the thing is that, and the other thing about it is that they have this very long, steeped history of growing. And as much as, hey, in the last 2 years, we've gone through about 45 cycles in our operation, but you still can't beat somebody who's been doing it for 20 years, and that has been their life. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those guys, those tricks and tips, they don't really tell anybody else. And so it's really hard to find that magic grower that is a master grower, right? Because everybody says they're a master grower. But my personal opinion is that unless you have 20 or 30 years serious experience and or a PhD, you're not a master grower.
Yeah. Yes, master growers. Yes. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of just getting back to indoor versus greenhouse, you mentioned the difference in cost.
Yes, massive.
Keep going. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks of each?
Well, so obviously indoors you have the ability in a very small environment to control the parameters. The problem is in the indoor environment is that if you get outside of those very narrow parameters, you can have all sorts of problems, whether it be some sort of bug infection or a mold problem, it could be a problem with if you're in the city, you can have a problem with your water. If you're in the city, you get a problem because of the power, all this kind of stuff. In outdoor, you have a lot of the issues, and this is typically what you see in Washington State, is if you have the ability to take the plants for their full cycle all the way to their 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 weeks, depending on your strain, you will get that high quality plant. The problem is, especially in Washington, west of the Cascades, that, come September 15th, the humidity changes, and what happens is all the farmers have to start looking at their plants and saying, okay, it's a weather versus crop kind of decision. And so you might probably need 2 or 3 extra weeks on your plants, but if you see that massive storm coming, you chop them down right away. And so what happens is that, yes, you get a large volume, but we're not seeing the quality as you would as compared to California. So how do you bridge those two kind of things? Well, you extend your growing season, or you add lights within a greenhouse. And these days you can grow year round. They're doing it up in Alaska in wood-fired greenhouses. You can do almost everything indoors, like in terms of control in a greenhouse, in terms of adding CO2, ventilation, temperature control. We're even now starting to see greenhouses that have HVAC systems in them because there's been studies done. Actually, my cousin did one on baby spinach that said that in the summertime, if you were able to lower the temperatures within your greenhouses, that you can actually increase grow rate with the use of CO2. It's a very long and complicated sort of thing, but
that's your job, right?
That's my job, yeah. And I'm trying to jam all this into 30 seconds, and I wish I had 3 hours. But I think the point is that it's one of the major things, and this is what I think everybody should be talking about, is if you look at energy consumption within Washington State and the sort of their calculations, it's roughly 8% of the total energy generated in Washington State goes to the production of cannabis. So this is staggering, and we're talking about a place that has Microsoft and Boeing and these huge, massive companies, and along the Columbia River, there's these server farms that do nothing but suck power, and we're talking about a bunch of people that have 6 or 8 lights each, and they're consuming 8% of the power. Okay, maybe in here we're a hydro, we got lots of power here, it's not such a big deal, but when the environmental lobby gets a hold of that, let me tell you, that's going to be a hard one to fight, right? And so if we proactively, as an industry, start, migrating towards the most, economically efficient, and I think we're going to have to do it anyways because, you can't have $5,000 or $10,000 power bills and compete against somebody who's got none. Right. So I think that we're going to see a massive transition in the industry simply because, well, as we are moving forward. I know that us on our team, we spent over $1 million on building the best, most amazing grow room you could, and I found out now that I could do one that's 5 times the size for about 1/5 the cost, and get about 10 times the yield. Yeah. And the thing is that one of the things that we always have as an indoor grower, and whenever we've had problems, we've always just taken the plants, thrown them out in the corner in the back somewhere. We come back a week later and we go, excuse my French, holy shit. What's going on here? Because the plant is doing better than the one inside, which, let me tell you, makes me go back inside and say, what the hell am I doing wrong here?
Right.
And so we have just naturally, and actually it was kind of we never intended to start growing outdoors, but when we were having our liquor control inspection, our Tony the Pot Cop, our investigator came and he takes a look at our operation, and we had this big space outside. And he says, oh, this looks cool. Are you going to put, greenhouses here? And I had no intention of. And I looked at him and said, oh, yeah, sure, right on.
Right.
And the next day we had greenhouses up because he said it was cool. And I couldn't believe it how we made it through the whole winter and below zero and with almost no heating. and we had an exceptional year of it, and it completely changed my opinion about outdoor growing. And like I said, we're end-of-lifing our indoor growing operation.
Yeah, that's unbelievable, and it also speaks to the strength of the plant.
Oh my gosh, yes, and that's the thing is that the plant is, yes, you're correct. It is very, very strong. And let me tell you, anybody can grow weed and we have proof of it because we had one plant that grew in our driveway in 3/4 inch minus gravel, which was amazing. And it grew 3 inches thick, and we fed it and stuff like that. But it grew in gravel. However, to grow plants consistently very well, that is hard. And man, and I, like I said, if you talk to a grower and they say they don't have problems, I tell you, they're straight up lying. Every grower has problems. It's just, how do you deal with it?
Or that person just doesn't know what they are dealing with.
Exactly, yeah. And like I said, we've gone over.
Everything's going great.
Everything's going great. And then, we've had, of course, the problems that you arise, aren't on any playbook, right? So the thing is that, for example, we bought a whole bunch of the very best lights you could get, these double-ended bulbs, and we were all excited, and we started using them the same way that we were using single-ended bulbs. And so all of a sudden, in our grow rooms, we started to see these patterns, these like yellow sort of whatever, and I couldn't figure out what the heck it is, whatever. I called up my cousin, and he just kind of laughs at me. He says, double-ended bulbs, you got them 2 feet above the canopy? He's like, yeah. So there's such a thing called phototoxicity. You can actually put too much of this type of light on. And so this is why it's a learning the technology type thing. And so, the solution was easy. Yeah. Raise the lights. Just
raise the lights. Yeah. And Phototoxicity, of course, the third album from The Police.
I thought that was Synchronicity.
It was.
Oh, guys, see? Oh, hey, I got it. See it, got
you. Well done. So we could go on forever talking about this whole thing. And, we want to come back and talk to you more about your story. Yeah. But for the time being, let's ask you the 3 final questions, which are, what has most surprised you in cannabis? What has most surprised you in life? And on the soundtrack of Danny's life, what is one track that we must have? So first things first, what has most surprised you in cannabis?
Actually, this is kind of, so people will look at me and think I'm foolish, but this is a real business. Yeah. And this is not duffel bags of cash that you have to bury in the backyard. And let me tell you, I had the whole planned out. I knew where exactly I was going to do it. And what was the wake-up call was that the margins, at least in Washington, I know other jurisdictions are a little different, but I think that they're decent in Washington, but they are not the manna from heaven that we expected. And then the other thing was the actually rapid destigmatization of the industry here in Washington. And let me just sort of ramble on about that for 30 seconds. Yeah. When I first started this project, I could not tell anybody. I couldn't talk to my kids' friends' parents about it, and not because I was ashamed of it. I just there was the perception.
And when was that? What time period?
About late 2012, early 2013 is when I first really started diving into this. And now today, I don't talk about it, not because it's just because whenever I tell somebody what I do, the question goes, you do what? And it involves a 4-hour conversation about exactly what we're doing here. So now I just tell everybody I sell insurance, but for completely different reasons.
That's fair. That's totally fair. That's so interesting that we went from I got to not talk about it to I don't talk about it because I can't keep talking about it.
Exactly. And that's exactly the situation. Now, okay, these are awesome problems for the industry to have. I think this is definitely a Washington, Colorado, I think definitely Oregon and Alaska sort of situation now. I think California, it's kind of, nobody's really cared there anyways. But
until now.
Yeah. But I think that what I'm looking forward to is seeing perceptions change on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. Definitely when we went to New York. I didn't know you weren't supposed to smoke joints in the street.
Yeah. That's a no-no.
No, I didn't know that. But I do now. So I'm waiting for East Coast perceptions to change.
Yeah, slowly but surely. Finance guys' eyes are definitely open.
Well, that's another thing. There's lots of things to talk about. But this is another thing about sort of changing perceptions. So when I started, I had to beg, borrow, and steal money. I got 0 interest credit cards. Relatives. I chased all of those pipe dreams. Now, I want to say in this last year, we are now being approached, I would say at least once a week, by people from outside of the state wanting to lend us money, like some sort of institutions. And my refrain is, okay, now obviously there's lots of ways to bring money in and play sort of fast and loose, but most of these people don't understand that they actually legally can't invest, and they're just waiting for it. And so what we're doing now is we're actually teeing up for other jurisdictions. We say, well, you can't invest here, but you live there, and there's some sort of imminent legislation in almost every state. And so we're just saying we've actually got a person in Massachusetts, a person in Florida, and hopefully New Hampshire. Some people that are like, well, we kind of met them through you, and you've been very helpful that way.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. You said you built up to New Hampshire as though you were going to say California with landmass, but
Landmass.
New Hampshire's much smaller than Massachusetts or Florida.
I know lots of I know lots of .comers from people with money in San Francisco, but still, people get very, very close. But when they start to talk to lawyers, they still get scared.
Yeah, because it goes back to the fact that this is federally illegal.
It's federally illegal, and in the eyes of the federal government, I am a felon. I produce and sell a Schedule I drug. And they don't like that.
Having said that, just to go back on one point, the energy point that you brought up, Jesse Horton, you brought up Oregon from Panacea Valley. He's working on an audit for the industry, so we're excited about that.
Yes, actually, as a matter of fact, I think he gave me a call a few days ago, and I haven't yet returned it, but I'm sure I'll get around to it.
Yeah, so we're excited about that, just to kind of at least gauge where you are and what you are putting out there or what you are using so that you can at least cut that just by, 10% will help, right?
Oh my gosh, exactly. Actually, so we had we actually, in Mason County where we're located, we have the second lowest power rates in the state. And they decided to arbitrarily, because I guess that they got power from Bonneville, which is a federal institution, and so they were worried about, feds coming in, so they decided to have an I-502 special tax, and so they actually raised our power rates by a full third. Yeah, and not just guys like that, but anybody who has a 502 license. So the store that whatever, it got its raised by a full third as well.
A special tax for cannabis businesses. I've never heard of that.
Yes, the shakedown. In our industry, everything costs a third more.
Indeed. And so that is what has most surprised you in cannabis. What has most surprised you in life?
In life, the fact that this happened, right? I have to, I've been a pretty straight and narrow guy my whole life. I've never really done anything too stupid, and I never ever thought that I would get the opportunity to go to work and smoke pot every day, and it to be like a legitimate profession. And you know what? And here's the thing, is that what surprised me is that the dreams that are going to be fulfilled because of this. So I talk about the trials and tribulations of the industry, and let me tell you, get a few drinks in me and a few joints, and oh boy, I'll go off. But I look at our small company, and we're 9 people, and everybody's got the way I did it is like a little tech company. Everybody's got a little slice. I mean, people have got to be vested, but literally, there are in our 9 people, there's probably about 30 people whose hopes and dreams of the future are predicated on the success of our business. And every day, everybody shows up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and we push to get orders out. And we've got taxes, and we've got payroll, and we want to go to all these cool conferences in Puerto Rico, and the thing is, and I have to say is that the team we've built, everybody wants to go to work, it's the weekend and it's Saturday and everybody has it off, and I'll be at the shop doing something, and a couple of guys will come in, and they just, I just wanted to make sure everything was here. Right. And, they come and they hang out, and we have a couple of beers, and, this kind of, and the thing is, I think that we have the ability now, and I think that's one of the good things about the Washington, the way that we can knock on the Liquor Control Board for the way they rolled it out, but one of the things I think they did is they started to build a good, strong base for a cottage industry. One of the things is that now there is a pool of marijuana industry workers that kind of flow between us now, and it's kind of cool. That now we can hire based on qualifications and experience rather than, hey, I like to smoke joints. The thing is that when I first started, we ran into, it's the marijuana industry, and people fib about their qualifications. And so when we first started, people would say that they were able to do X, Y, Z, whatever it is, and we would find out in very, very short order that everybody just thought this was a good opportunity to go to work and get high. And so now, because back then, the idea of being a trimmer, you went over to your friend's house, you sat around, you ate pizza, they paid you a few bucks, and they were lucky if you, did, half a pound in a day. Today, people say, hey, I'm able to produce this much CO2 using this machine. I'm able to use this type of machine to produce this type of percentage of keef, or I'm able to roll, like we have a guy that can roll 3,500 joints a day by himself, right? Let me tell you, that guy, we make sure he's happy and stays on the job because, he's a moneymaker.
That's a specific qualification.
It is, right? I mean, and I'm not kidding. And so there's, and now, and actually, we've actually had a few good hires because sometimes there's a lot of different attitudes within the industry about how the shops should be run. We've heard of one operation where the managers go around with tasers and bulletproof vests. No, I'm not kidding. And then I heard of another, then we've seen other operations. I don't want to name names that I can't believe the Liquor Control Board passed it. And it runs, and the thing is that, so we see, people that have the good vibe like us, and we're in it for the long term, right? We're not, we realized a while ago that's going to take us a while to make some money at it. And now we're in it because we just love pot, right? And we see a big future in it, and we really do. And I think that, just sort of one of the benefits of us just having this sort of internal good, happy culture is that we're getting these people. Well, we've got a reputation, and now when people are finding issues in their own positions, hey, those Cascade Crops guys, let's go check that out.
Right, let's go see what's going on there. But in terms of the song, the one song in particular that would be on the soundtrack of Danny's life, what would that be?
Okay, my favorite song is, of course, the theme song to SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, who lives on a pineapple under the sea, right? You know?
It's him. I don't know if that's how the song goes.
No, I watch it every day. Have you seen my, I know it off by heart.
All right.
Well, no, I don't.
So is that the song we're going with?
Well, either that or Rock Lobster.
Okay.
That's my go-to
there we
karaoke
go.
shop.
B-52s.
But yeah, of course.
Go-to karaoke.
Yeah.
All right.
Because then during the interludes, I can do my dance moves.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Rock Lobster. Danny Curylo, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Seth. I enjoyed it.
So there you have Danny Curylo. I hope you could hear how good of a guy that guy is. There's plenty of really good people in the industry, plenty of really kind of unassuming folks, and Danny's certainly one of them. So enjoy the conversation with Danny and let it grow, Danny. Let it grow.